So, how do you really tell the history of a place? I mean, you could just read a book, or you could be a donkey and a pig in southern Arkansas, find a magical compass, and, just walk right into the past. Today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're following two pretty unusual guides on an adventure all through the history of Ashley County. And this is the line that kicks the whole thing off. It sounds like something a librarian might mutter, right? That's the kind of book that can get a fellow in trouble. Only the one saying it wasn't a person. Nope, it was a donkey named Bronkey, and he was looking over his friend Pig's shoulder at an old, dusty history book. Yeah, this is going to be a very different kind of history lesson. Okay, so let's picture this. The whole story gets going in a barn, pretty much present day. And our two heroes, Bronkey and Pig, they don't just find an old book. They stumble on this little brass compass, kind of half buried in the dirt near Bayou Bartholomew. But here's the thing. This compass, it doesn't just point north. It's a doorway. The magic here is actually pretty simple, which I love. You open the book, you touch the compass, and bam, the needle just starts spinning like crazy. And then, all of a sudden, Bronkey and Pig aren't in their barn anymore. They've literally stepped right into the pages they were just reading. They're about to see the history of Ashley County for themselves. So what's the first stop on this trip? It's what some might call the Great Wilderness. But let's be really clear here. This was not some empty land just waiting for people to show up. Not at all. It was a vibrant, living world. It was the homeland of the Quapaw people. Their villages, their cornfields, they had been part of this landscape for generations. This place already had a long, rich history. But that established world, well, it was on the verge of a massive, monumental change. Because when the new settlers arrived, they brought with them a whole new idea, the concept of a county. And that idea was going to set the stage for a major clash of cultures and a complete reimagining of what the land even was. And this, right here, is the core of the conflict. I mean, you couldn't have two more different views. For the Quapaw, who called themselves the Ugachpa, or the downstream people, this land was their homeland. It was alive with memory, with spirit. But for the settlers showing up with their surveying tools, it was property, something you could slice up, measure with chains, and sell off with a piece of paper. It's the exact same piece of earth, seen in two totally different ways. And the speed of this change was just staggering. Seriously, think about it. In just a handful of years, you go from scattered homesteads to a legally organized county. Just like that. Ashley County gets officially carved out of 3 other counties, and boom, Hamburg is set up as the county seat. It's like they're laying a brand new grid right on top of this ancient landscape. Now, just because it was an official county doesn't mean life got any easier. Oh no. For those early settlers in the 1850s, life was a grind, a daily, grueling battle for survival. I mean, everything had to be built from scratch. Your cabin, the food on your table, everything. You're talking backbreaking labor, fending off wolves and panthers, and knowing you absolutely had to rely on your neighbors if you were going to make it. And right in the middle of all that struggle, we get this perfect line from Pig. It's so simple and it's funny, right? I smell cornbread. But it's also so true to the time. Because something as basic as cornbread, well, it wasn't just food. It was comfort. It was survival. It was the sign that you'd made it through another day. You know, the county had barely even found its footing, and then it gets thrown into its greatest test yet. We're heading into the Civil War now, and the tough, tough aftermath. This was a chapter that was going to test the county by fire and leave some really deep, lasting scars. Now, you didn't see any huge, famous battles fought in Ashley County, but that doesn't mean the war wasn't everywhere. Its impact was felt in every home. Men enlisted and went off to fight, and a lot of them, they just never came back. For the folks left behind, mostly women and kids, life was filled with fear, with shortages of basic things like salt and medicine. And the end of the war in '65, that wasn't the end of the hardship. It was just the start of the long, messy period we call Reconstruction. Yeah, so when the war was finally over, there were no big celebrations in Ashley County. It was really just the start of a brand new struggle. The whole economy was in ruins, families were torn apart by loss, by politics, the entire social fabric was just shredded. Rebuilding wasn't about putting up new barns. It was about trying to piece a whole community back together from ashes, with no clear idea what the future would even look like.
But out of all that devastation from the war and Reconstruction, something new was about to rise up. A new force that would reshape Ashley County even more than the first settlers did. And that force, it was the timber industry.
Just try to imagine the change for a second. For decades, the soundtrack of this county was, well, nature. Birds, wind, maybe a farm animal or two. And then, almost overnight, the air is filled with totally new sounds, the screech of saws, the roar of a locomotive. This wasn't just a little bit of progress. This was a whole new soundscape, a complete reinvention of the county's identity. And the real catalyst, the big game changer for all this, the railroad. The Iron Horse pulls into the county in the 1890s, and it changes absolutely everything. I mean, think about it. Stuff that used to take weeks to float down a river on a boat could now get moved in a matter of days. And all of a sudden, those huge, endless pine forests in Ashley County, they weren't just remote stands of trees anymore. They were a gold mine, accessible to the entire country. So you've got this perfect storm of timber and railroads, and right in the middle of it, a whole new town is born, Crossett. And it was pretty much the brainchild of these three guys. You had E.W. Cap Gates. He was the visionary, the guy who could look at a forest and see a town. Then there was Edward S. Crossett, the investor from Iowa with the deep pockets. And finally, Dr. J.W. Watzek, the practical, boots-on-the-ground guy who made it all work. The three of them together, they built an empire. But Crossett wasn't your average town. It was what you call a company town. And what does that mean? Well, it means the Crossett Lumber Company owned pretty much everything. The houses people lived in, the stores they shopped at, the local hotel, all of it. Now, on one hand, that meant steady jobs and some stability, which was huge back then. But the flip side, the company had a say in nearly every part of your life. All right, so after this incredible journey, all the way from the Quapaw homeland, through the fire of the Civil War, and into the age of sawmills and railroads, our guides, Bronkey and Pig, they're finally at the end of their trip. And it's time to kind of step back and think, what does it all mean? And Bronkey, he just nails it right here. He brings everything full circle. He realizes this isn't just about telling other people's stories from long ago. Every choice made by the settlers, by the soldiers, by those lumber barons, it all directly shaped the world that he and Pig are living in right now. It shaped the world for everyone in Ashley County today. See, history isn't really in the past. It's the ground, it's the foundation that we're all standing on at this very moment.
Look, the story of Ashley County is one of a kind for sure. But the big idea here, that's universal. Every single town, every city, every little patch of land has a story just like this, built on the choices and the struggles of the people who were there first. And that leaves all of us with a pretty powerful question to think about, doesn't it? What story does your home leave behind? What paths were walked right where you are, long before you ever got there?